Welcome to another edition of JAX TV here from the W-JAX in Munich 2012. With me Matthew McCullough from GitHub. There he is leading training for GitHub. And we want to talk a little bit about GitHub. And when I say GitHub, I mean the company and your product. But because it seems, after the keynote you gave here just 2 hours ago, that there's a concept behind both the company and your product, GitHub, that's called open by default. What does that mean? That's quite interesting.
Well, there's actually a lot to say about that, and I think it's interesting because it chooses not only how we work and what we build, but even also who we hire. And you'll find that a vast number of the people who are at employment at GitHub are open source authors. And that's not to say that that's the only selection criteria, but it embodies a mindset that also works at the business, which is show what you do, show off what you've done, allow other people to critique it, take that as constructive feedback, learn ways to make it better. And you're not sure then if I'm talking about the business or the person or the software, and I'm answering, yes, it's actually all three. You can improve your skills, you can improve the code that you're delivering to customers, and you can actually improve the business by allowing people to see dysfunctions and things that are succeeding, and then to take corrective action on them at that scale, the human scale, and the code scale.
Mm-hmm. When you say C, you really mean C, because in GitHub, as the system which is the web hosting for the version control system Git, you can see what other people are coding. And within your company, you showed it in some charts, you can see what your colleagues are doing too. Yeah, this openness could cause some trouble, I can imagine, because if anyone can see what others are doing, some people might say, out of vanity, do more than others, or someone would be envied by others, or things like that. How do you cope with these pure human factors?
So it's funny that you mentioned that, because you're now asking questions that everybody faces in their software team. You're just simply seeing more metrics that may expose those, but these same things happen in the most closed of companies. Someone has more title than you do, so they're a software engineer level 3 or level 4, where yours a level 1 or 2, or perhaps they get assigned the important project where you feel yours is in the background. So actually the corrective actions to this are best embodied by open source. Meritocracy, you're judged by what you do. And the do is no longer just volume, it's the quality and the craftsmanship and the craftswomanship that you put into the products. And so it takes a real effort on the part of every employee to focus on helping others produce awesome product and awesome results, and not just measuring it by size or scale or frequency, but end result.
Yeah, and this idea puts a high level of responsibility to each of the members of the company, because if everybody is involved in the production process, because it's part of the whole process, or he or she is part of the whole process, it raises the responsibility, and on the other hand, the trust the company puts in the people. And it was really convincing to say, if you want to have a proper product, you need to trust people to do what they can do. But how do you guarantee that in the end, the product is really that what you wanted?
So I think that there's 3 things that address that. First and foremost is you have to be as extremely choosy as you possibly can in who you bring onto the company, because each person has a exceedingly large influence on the outcome of the business, as you just said. So mistakes are amplified. You want to choose people that have integrity, that you could easily trust, that have great skills, but also have a business and a personable hat that they can wear in addition to their software hat. Because ultimately, software in the end is a human-produced product, and so if you keep unwinding these steps, you'll see at the very beginning that you need people who can work well together, people who are trustworthy, and that also then have engineering skills to produce the product. So that's kind of the one pillar focused on the human, but the second is that when you're talking about producing an end great result, that simply just is teamwork. So again, it falls back to a responsibility that you can collaborate to produce a good end result. And third is that with this responsibility, a title, even a phrase that we use during hiring is, would you trust this person to run the company? Because you just said, oh my goodness, they're having such a huge impact on the company's bottom line. And so at the very outset, you should ask, would I be okay with this new person that we're hiring running the company? And if you say anything other than an unreserved yes, you need to hold back on hiring that person.
Yeah, running the company is a good keyword, because usually people who are running a company are the people who are deciding something in the company. If anybody should be able to run the company, everybody should be able to decide. How does your decision process work? It seems that there's a great kind of deliberation within it and discussion, but at one point it has to come to an end.
It does.
Where does it come to the end, or what kind of structure do you use to let it come to an end?
So this is indeed actually one of the biggest challenges that we face. We have such amazingly technically competent people in the realms of JavaScript and iOS and Android and Rails and C programming that the technical prowess is there. But with this, then you ask, what's their capability to innovate? And people are coming up with an amazing amount of ideas, but then which ones do you act on? This is a progression towards your question. And then when you're acting on those, you have all kinds of little, should I turn left? Should I turn right by 10 degrees or 15 degrees? How many kilometers would I travel? And those are left to be made as near to the person who can make the best decision as possible. So that may mean the person writing the code, or it may mean the small group or team that will ultimately use that API or will be the one to put it into a customer-facing product. And so the kind of pieces, leave it as local as possible, and if there's still a deadlock in that case, there's someone who nominates them, who the group nominates at the beginning of a small couple-week project as kind of the owner. And you say, wait a minute, that seems like a fraction of there is no manager. But to say that someone is responsible for delivering doesn't mean that they're decision maker, but they may very well be the tiebreaker just to make sure that something is produced and it doesn't just end up in a deadlock. So that rotates very quickly. It's on a very small and fine-grained basis, and it is kind of emergent. People kind of elect that person in the same way that you'd elect a leader, but it's very short-lived and it's very small in scope, so it doesn't feel like that they're controlling the destiny of the whole company or product.
Yeah, you're a software company, so you're producing software. And one of the big problems with software is, or was maybe, that people said we're used to produce software the way they have skills and can do that. And now in your company it seems that everyone has more than one hat. And is there also a notion of knowing that I'm not only producing software, but I'm producing it for somebody else, for my customer. So is the customer hat also a hat the people are wearing?
There's several aspects to this. One is the description of an optimal candidate to work at GitHub. And Tom and Chris describe those as T-shaped people. That actually gets extracted from the Valve handbook. And T-shaped people have one skill that they're extremely strong in. That's their pillar. That's why they're here. But you don't focus just on that. You make sure you reach a little bit to your right and a little bit to your left to have skill in perhaps finance and business. Maybe it's marketing or whatever other language you're going to plug into. Maybe RESTful APIs that your C program is going to be exposing itself as. So always think about the T shape, have that vertical strong pillar in the middle, but then have a little bit of skill on both sides. And the company actually invests in that. It's amazing. It's not just a you must bring this to the table, but we'll help you do that. We have internal training where people cross-train in the different disciplines. We have people give talks to kind of get out of their comfort zone for the thing they primarily program in. We have sponsorships for buying books on things like the Kindle store or PDFs online and Wicklers. You purchase these just from any choice that you'd like, any source that you'd like. But really saying, grow yourself beyond that main piece, and it actually causes you, to the earlier question that you asked, be able to have better debate and less deadlock, because you can start to think about, but you know what, Mirko's going to be right, that's going to be better for the business, or, as you asked at the very end, that would actually serve the customer better. That was maybe just a selfish decision as to why I had it in the spin lock. I wanted to use that new framework, but using the classic one would allow us to produce something quicker for the customer.
We're now talking about the people. Yeah, so people are in the center. But nevertheless, you said that automation is also important. How can automation support such a human-centered process?
That may be the easiest thing you've asked me yet, simply because humans, especially hiring in the talent domains that I've spoken of so far, coding and design, and these are all creative endeavors, as much as we love to call them software engineering, and it's accurate, they're really, really inventive and creative spaces. And that is a whim that's very hard to capture. You can't just say, at 9:01 a.m., I would love your creativity to flip to the on position. It's much more analog than that. You get in a mode or a place or a coffee shop that you work that you have that. And so kind of mapping that to what you're talking about automation is to actually make more creative time and less of the repetitive and droll work, or more opportunity for your brain to be in that mode. So if something is simply just a button push, or it's the same thing you did yesterday, or a small script that you keep just running at the console, that's ripe for opportunity, not just to save the company time or money, not just to reduce mistakes, but actually to amplify your brain's amount of total part of the day that you can spend on the creative endeavors, which really are where the innovations and the money-making product gets created, not in repeating the same thing that you did yesterday.
Let me come to the final question. It sounds very easy, and you brought me to the idea to ask it. It starts with a why, because you said our deliberation process is always, why aren't we doing it? Why want we to do it? And that's the question I want to ask you. Why are you doing it that way?
It's almost back to the first principles concept that I said in the keynote. It's a classical Greek idea. It centers around debate, but we often have conflated in modern society, I see it in politics and in every country, where we mix up the word debate with argument. Argument is usually not productive. Debate, if reduced to its elemental sauce, if you will, actually keeps refining the idea, sifting out the ones that fall off to the sides, abstracts it from someone's personal preferences, but rather is using their accumulation of what they think customers might want or data that they've seen for the field. And it's actually very helpful in the engineering space because it allows you to make an argument or try to suggest that we go this direction, but to emotionally detach from it so that if someone criticizes that technology, that parser, that framework, that language, they're not suggesting that you're wrong. They're not suggesting that you're ignorant. They're in fact saying that that particular technology is better fitted to another answer, another question, just not the one that we're currently on. And I find that that requires practice. So we do this over and over again on each little piece. And some probably don't deserve that level of debate, but that's honing a skill. It's almost like exercise. For when the big ones come, we have those skills practiced. We can efficiently decide.
Thank you very much, Matthew. It sounds like open source meets open-mindedness. And thank you for watching.